Hello, it's Mr. C with your level 6 math for today. We're doing lesson number 3. This is unknown numbers in addition. All right, so one of the things that we're going to talk about today is doing equations, and in particular looking for unknown numbers. An equation says two things are the same using mathematical symbols, and the important thing here is this equal sign, because what we're going to find is what is equal on one side of the equation has to be equal on the other side of the equation. So for example, 7 plus 2 isn't the same as 10 minus 1, but their combined value is. So 7 plus 2 is 9, just as 10 minus 1 is 9. So while they're different numbers, they are equal in value to each other. Now, often in math, we have an unknown variable, and we'll usually give it a letter like X or Y, but you can really give it any letter. And so a symbol for a number we don't know yet is that letter, and then the X is the variable, right? So that's what we're solving for. We're solving for the variable. If it's not a variable, it's a constant. So the numbers that don't have a letter next to it, they're the constants, okay? So here we have an addition fact. Just like we've done before, the two numbers that you add together are called addends, and then the result is a sum. Now if you put your finger over one of those numbers, you can usually figure out what it is. So 4 plus what is 7? Well, to figure that out, we just subtract the 4 from the sum, the addend from the sum, and that gives us 3. Likewise, if we cover up the 4, and we say what plus 3 equals 7, we can simply subtract 3 from 7 to solve for 4. So here in this first practice problem, we can look at the same thing. 12 plus what equals m? Well, all we have to do is subtract 12 from 31, and that will give us m. So we take 12, subtract it from 31, and we get 19. Now, these kinds of problems are great because it's easy to check your work. All you do is plug that number back in for the variable, and so now that we know that m equals 19, we can check it by doing 12 plus 19 equals 31. So here we've checked that, and it checks out. All right, here we have a similar thing. All of these numbers plus n equals 64. So now it's a multi-step problem. The first thing we need to do is add these first three numbers together. So we'll have the total of those plus n equals 64. So once we've done that, we see that 58 plus n equals 64. Well, just like our other problems, we can just subtract 58 from this side of the equation and get n equals 6. And then check our work by saying, all right, this plus this plus this plus 6 equals 64. And that will check out. Now, one way I like to do this, just because it helps me later on with algebra and things like that, is when I'm doing something like, let's get down to this part of the problem. 58 plus n equals 64. If I draw it out this way instead of vertically, it helps me to say, okay, what do I do to isolate the variable? Now, in this case, n we need by itself. So we have to get rid of this 58. To get rid of it, we just subtract it from both sides of the equal sign. If you subtract the same number from both sides, then it's going to be fine. So we just subtract that 58, and that gives us nothing plus n. And then we have to also subtract it from over here, because that would be equal, right? So if we're just subtracting 58 from both sides, that gives us 6. Obviously, we don't need to say anything about the 0 plus n, so it's just n equals 6 at this point. So I like to do it that way. It just simplifies it for me in my mind. All right, so we can cover the 8 with our finger. I've already done that. Here we're doing it on a subtraction problem instead of an addition. So we've got a minuend, a subtrahend, and the difference. So if we cover the 3, we'd say 8 minus what equals 5. Well, just like in the addition problem, we can do the opposite. So we'll take the difference and subtract it from the minuend, and that will give us, that'll give us the number 3. So let's practice that here. We don't know what that is, but we know if we subtract that, it equals 24. So we can just flip this on its end and do 24 plus 16 equals W. Now, a lot of you are going to want to do 16 minus 24, or 24 minus 16, which is 8. Well, that won't check out because 8 minus 16 is negative 8. So you always have to check your work on these kinds of problems. Here, we've gone ahead and flipped it and done 16 plus 24 equals 40. And then we can check our work by doing 40, which would be W, minus 16 equals 24. Okay? So here we're doing the same. Oh, this is where it gets so tricky for students. And I like to isolate the variable. So I'm going to do it different from the way they do it here on the PowerPoint. Let me show you their work first, and then we'll back up. So they say you can determine the missing numbers to think of a similar problem. So 236 minus y equals 152. Just think of 5 minus 3 equals 2. Well, to solve for y, which in this case is a negative number, we would simply say, well, 5 minus 3 is 2, so 5 minus 2 is 3. So we're going to subtract this number from this number. So we can subtract 152 from 236 because it's a similar problem, right? So if we do that, subtract 152 from 236, we get 84. Now, that works great now. It's a little trickier later on. So this is the way I like to do it. Again, let's isolate the variable. We want y by itself, and we want it positive. So the way you can do that is just move it from this side of the equation to this side of the equation. And I would do that by adding y to both sides. And now I have 236 equals 152 plus y. Now I have to get rid of that 152, so I'm actually going to move that over there by subtracting from both sides of the equation. And that gives me y over here equals 84. So we get the same result. I think that's the same result. Yeah. Same result, but that way it just helps me keep it straight in my mind. You don't need to do it that way. You can just think of a similar problem. But this is a concept that, is new here in level 6 rather. But you're going to be using these same kind of problems for a long time. So it's good to know how to do it. Finally, just statements such as 12 plus m equals 31 are equations. And an equation is a mathematical sentence that uses the symbol equal to show that two quantities are equal. In algebra, so we're starting to think about algebra now, we're referring to a missing number as an unknown. So I call it the unknown variable. When asked to find the unknown in the exercises that follow, look at the number represented by the letter that makes the equation true, in this case m. And that's it. So here's your practice set. Good luck. Have fun with this.